Thanks for joining the channel here over at SubScribe. So why did old movies like Ghostbusters do so well, and why does modern Hollywood suck donkey nuts as it does? Because, for one reason, Ernie Hudson wasn't a Mary Sue. He was just a normal guy from the '84 Ghostbusters. The scientists were the eclectic one. Hudson was the guy that they bounced their crazy ideas off of. He was just the audience. So I was on one of these streaming sites, and over the weekend, they broadcast nonstop Halloween slash horror movies, like probably 100 movies, which all kind of seem from the 70s to the 90s, and the last one was the original Ghostbusters. And I was comparing the 80s flicks with modern stuff, and the difference is modern stuff, well, obviously has diversity forced into it where it doesn't fit, and the old 80s horror slop didn't do that. They just told the story about some monsters running around and the kids have to find ways to destroy them or get eaten. And admittedly, a lot of it was an excuse to show boobs and bush, which was very important to us when we were kids. I mean, it's important now, but it was also back then. And compared to modern movies, they're pretty much Shakespeare because modern films shoehorn diversity into everything, which may or may not be a problem. It's up. I mean, obviously for us, it's an issue, but it's up to you. But the modern diversity is cancer because they make affirmative action hires into Mary Sue characters. And the Mary Sue character, I think that term might have come from the 2015 Star Wars. Disney bought the rights to Star Wars and decided to run with it, where people noticed that the Daisy Ridley character was always way overpowered to the point where it retconned, which is another way of saying destroyed the original story of Luke Invader. It's like the original movies that the little George Lucas 77 movies that this whole empire was built on. Disney in his wisdom decided to go back and destroy it because they really don't like George Lucas, and they hate white males. So Luke in the original middle stories wasn't a very powerful. He was a very powerful Jedi, but he wasn't anything near what the Rey character was. She was getting into like godlike powers, and that was the peak cringe feminism era, which 2015, 2010 to 2015, which kind of ran into a wall because of two reasons. Trump got elected in 2016, and then they kind of switched gears to lose their mind over that. And then, actually, at the same time, trans took over the whole kind of girl power movement, which is just too sweet, and it's on its way out now. So maybe feminism is going to come back into vogue. Something to make fun of. So modern non-characters are Mary Sue characters to the point of absurdity, and it's making people, i.e. me, look at those characters and just as soon as you see it, it's a stimulus response. Instantly have no interest in a movie when you see it because it's like, oh, if non-white character, then woke, and it's, the correlation is like 99%. And people don't want to spend money on woke cancer. I don't want to lecture from the Epsteins in Hollywood who, for some reason, think they have a moral high ground. And Ghostbusters was an example of a movie that, forgive me, but did a diversity right, because the four main characters, the two European American, I looked them up. They're both like Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English for Aykroyd, and Murray I think is Irish. Spengler I assume is Jewish, and then the other guy is black. Ernie Hudson, and Ernie Hudson was the most relatable character to the audience and was a perfect fit because you already had the three obsessed scientists. They were the eclectic weirdos. Hudson was just some guy. He was probably a janitor or driving a limo or something. He was us. And he didn't care about ghosts. It was just a gig. And he finds himself wrapped up in the world of the supernatural, but they balance his character out by giving him some outsider's insight to the world of the spiritual. He's riding in a car, and it's like the setting, the music, the tone of this movie, and that scene was perfect. And Dan Aykroyd is smoking a cigarette, which 1984, you'd still do that for verisimilitude. And they're talking about the increasing ghost activity, and it's a comedy, but it's a horror comedy, and it does some of the horror stuff right. And they're mentioning like this seems like a biblical proportion, And Hudson mentions he likes Christ's style, which is probably something you'd never say in a movie today, unless it was some way to like virtue signal about Guatemalans or something. And talking about the New Testament, and it occurs to him that the book of Revelation seems to be happening because with so many spirits in this realm, it means that the dead are trying to return. And this is a perfect way to balance the academic scientists, who are probably atheists, with the perspective of a normal guy who's familiar, at least with Christianity. And what modern movies would do would be to tear down the three other main characters to build up the black one, but which the 2016 Ghostbusters did with this Annie Potts character. Was the secretary was played by, I want to say Chris Evans. I don't think it's Chris Evans. Was it like Chris Helmsworth or something? I think his guy played Thor. But in this movie, none of the characters were really exceptional. They were normal PhDs in psychology or the occult, and maybe Spengler was bio or engineering. The movie worked perfectly because they didn't make race an issue, because it's not an issue that the audience gives a shit about, or at least like the almost like computer way to look at it is, the logical way to look at it is, will the audience pay money for certain themes? And the audience won't pay money to be lectured to on race, especially from these the people who are living in gated communities. It's people are whining about something over in Britain now, and the people who are complaining about, Elon Musk made some comment about what immigrants are doing to little white kids, and these people are virtue signaling, and then these public figures in Britain are virtue signaling, and people are pointing out what towns they live in, what villages, and the villages they live in are like 95% white. It's like, okay, you're not having the same experience that these victims of grooming gangs have had. Anyway, so the what the audience will pay for, because in movies, being lectured to is just not an issue that the audience gives a shit about. It was just four guys who were trying to stop some, I guess, demons or something. It was one of the better movies ever made. The timing, the characters, the chemistry, even the sets and the audio were perfect. I remember Red Letter Media was comparing the original to the 2016 remake, where the remake didn't allow silence for the jokes to land and to settle and to let you think about it, or to have long, slow scenes where they're walking up a staircase and you see it's just four ordinary guys. They're not, they're not Chris Evans and Chris Helmsworth and, Ryan Reynolds types. Like, they're very, I mean, like, they're all kind of a little bit chubby. Anyway, so the sets were perfect. It was a comedy. It didn't try to preach some heavy-handed messaging about the two gay guys, and one's in a hospital bed. He's injured because of racism and homophobia, and his trans furry otherkin can't approve his medical procedure because he lives in a red state, probably Florida, with intolerant Nazi DeSantis and Trump, and thus the poor guy is doomed. He got a fatal dose of wounded in the knee with being misgendered. Thank God there's a 100% black trans group of doctors, except for the one blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy who, of course, won't use his pronouns. I would love to write TV shows. Just everything you're not supposed to make fun of, throw it in there. Like, she alleges the politician sexually assaulted her. Yeah, but what was she wearing? But you have to say it with with deadpan, straight face, not like the character's made to be made fun of. You have characters throw in racist things too, and it's not like, in modern Hollywood they do that because they want to show you that these characters are bad. But I would have the cool characters do it as well for a laugh. I mean, wasn't Hillary Clinton was talking about dragging a 20 through a trailer park back in the 80s, or Super Predators in the 90s? Anyway, some honorable mentions go to Goonies and the 85 Return of the Living Dead, where there was an Asian guy, obviously, in Goonies from Indiana Jones. Return of the Living Dead had a black character who was a punk rocker, and he was just a guy. wasn't special in any way, and the zombies ate him like they ate everyone, I think, in that movie. I don't know if anyone survived. Obviously, I wouldn't have diversity in movies because diversity in itself is just propaganda. That's the point of putting it in movies, because to the left, it in and of itself is a positive thing, where now, because of association with woke themes, it's a negative thing. Before, in the 80s, you could say at least it was pretty well neutral. But if you're going to put them in, at least just for the love of God, try to be balanced. But that's asking the impossible for Hollywood. So you get Madam Web, where the Mexican mentions her dad was deported, and the audience is wondering, wouldn't you just go home with your dad and make Mexico great again? It was weird the way she reacted. She goes like, I'm not going to go back there. It's like, why wouldn't you? That's the country that your people created. What's so wrong with it, and what does it mean if like you take yourself with you? Anyway, so Scary Movie 1 and 2 had black characters, written by the Wayans brothers, and was pretty balanced. The white guy was endlessly roasted, but one black guy, I think, was like retarded, and he didn't know his dad. That was a joke between brother and sister, and the other one was gay. So they just threw a grenade in, let it go in all directions, which is the way to do it. Make fun of everybody. One of the worst examples was the Roland Dahl's remake. I know I mispronounced that, of the Witches book. It's been remade into movies, or made from the book into movies. But there was a recent remake. I think Anne Hathaway was in it, and they, of course, race swapped the characters, so it was a little black Mary Sue character, and this kid was a super genius. He did everything. The problem is, in the movie, in the book, there's three characters, so you're supposed to apportion out responsibility and problem solving among the three characters, because it's three characters. It doesn't make sense to have one main character, but because he's black, he had to do everything. He had to solve every problem, and the other two characters were just along for the ride. It got to the point of like being obnoxious, where even someone who's not kind of into this kind of tinfoil hat obsession with race relations in Hollywood, you'd notice that the other two characters were about to do something, and the little black kid would come along and it's like, of course, he's so smart, he solved the puzzle. It's like, then why even include the other two characters? All they're doing is slowing him down. The other character was just some fat kid, and the female character, I don't know what she was doing, just kind of hanging out. And they do that because, well, Hollywood is cancer, and it's not about to change. I was going to say anytime soon, but it's not about to change at all. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.